Monday, October 25th, 2021, and today we're having a complete hour or however long people like and of questions and answers about spiritism. Please put in the comment section, put your questions, and I will attempt to answer. Before I begin, I'd like to have a prayer to start our meeting for our Spiritism meeting. Dear Jesus, thank you for our gathering of people interested in Spiritism. Please incentivize us and inspire us to continue on with our intellectual curiosity, to understand who we are, what we are to the spirit realm, and what is awaiting for us. Amen. Spiritism is so exciting. In fact, I would again like to take this reminder that if you look at the books by codified by Allan Kardec, the first one is the Spirits book. You can see it right here. The Spirits book. You can first of all, on my YouTube channel, I have every chapter in audible format. You can play it. You can also go to my website nwspiritism.com, download the MP3 or the MP, I think 4 something file, M4 something, which is an audible format where you can save where you left off, etc. I also have that. You can also go to your whatever search engine you use, type in Allan Kardec's space PDF. You'll find the Spirits book on PDF. You'll find the Mediums book on PDF. I recommend people, if you're interested in Spiritism, I recommend you start with my book, Spiritism 101, The Third Revelation. You can download that for free on PDF on nwspiritism.com, and there'll be links below as well as on the screen here. If you are all interested in mediumship and you have questions about talking to spirits, questions or fears or concerns, I would strongly recommend you read the Mediums book by Allan Kardec. And then also, for a better understanding of the New Testament, I would read the Gospel According to Spiritism. He's also wrote a couple other books, Genesis and Heaven and Hell. Those are also wonderful books, but really the main one that he codified. Now, when I say codified, what do I mean by codified? So Allan Kardec went to a mediums meeting in around 1850 something, and it was pretty frivolous. But when he was at the mediums meeting, this was table tapping and all that. It seems to be more serious. And so what he decided is, okay, he's going to find out exactly what's going on here, because this is, he didn't believe in spirits, and then all of a sudden things are happening he didn't understand. So he wrote a series of 1,019 questions. He didn't just give them to one medium. He gave them to multiple mediums, didn't tell other mediums about other ones, and then didn't use the answers unless the answers were the same or similar from different mediums. So he codified the Spirits book. Now, this was all foreshadowed in the New Testament when in John chapter 14, verse 15 to 17, is, if you love me, keep my commands, and I will ask the Father, and he'll give you another consoler to help you and be with you forever, the Spirit of truth. So the Spirit of truth is the Spirit who organized all the spirits who talk to the different mediums to answer questions by Allan Kardec. I'll carry on. The world cannot accept him because it neither sees nor knows him, but you know him, for he lives with you and will be in you. And then also in John 14, verse 26, but the Consoler, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you. So what Spiritists consider is that Spiritism is the third revelation, the first being Moses with the 10 Commandments, the second being Jesus Christ coming to earth, and then the third being more information given to us by the spirit world, codified by Allan Kardec. And what is happening here is that in each revelation, more and more is being exposed and being told to us. And why? Because the technological level and the cultural level of humanity is a little bit higher each time, and more can be absorbed and understood. And if you look at the Old Testament, they would say things, very cruel things, right, to do to towns and so forth. New Testament, not so much. Still, there's some cruelty there that we think is culturally not appropriate. But again, you have to see is the Spirit's told us the things in the Old and New Testament that are about love, charity, and fraternal are eternal. But the rest of the messages were fashioned to fit the culture and technology of the levels of humans at that time. And therefore, in the Spirit's book, they told us more and more. It's more. It's more of about instead of commanding us, the spirit world under the leadership of Jesus Christ lays out. Okay, this is the world you're in. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to give you some knowledge. Now you've been on this earth. I don't know how many lives have you been on the earth. I don't know, but he's talking to all of us, and all of us have been here quite a long time. He says, now this is who you are. This is where you could go, right? I'm telling you about heaven. I'm going to tell you about the lower zone. I'm telling you about the dark abyss, which is below the crust of the earth. What a spirit is, how you reincarnate, everything. Well, not everything. Not telling us everything. They'll tell us more and more. This is not a static doctrine. This is a doctrine that will grow as we have the capability to understand. Just like the Bible. Spirits tell us the Bible. I mean, in one spirit says, look, you can't say that Jesus Christ described the weather in Jerusalem one day and say that's it, right? No, the Bible cannot contain Jesus. Jesus is bigger than the Bible. Jesus has the right to keep talking to us through his spirit messengers all the time. So things are going to change. Understandings will understanding certain cultural effects, and what's apropos and what's not, they will change. As we get more loving and understanding, right? Because even the Spirit's book was quite radical for 1850s when they said you can come back as a male or female. It doesn't make a difference to the spirit. And also, so they asked, what is marriage? And a marriage is a union between two spirits. Eventually, as you go higher and higher, you don't have a certain sex. You're a combination of the best of both. Hopefully, is how you get there. So, the male and female nature, the passive and aggressive aspects of the different combinations of that nature. So, that's what you are. That's what Spiritism brings us. Now, if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section. If not, I will start off with some of the questions I've had sent to me. Let me bring this up. Okay, how does a guardian angel stay in touch with a person? So, everyone has a guardian angel, and we kind of think of a guardian angel in those cartoons where it's sitting on your shoulder and watching everything you do. And that's directionally correct. But a guardian angel doesn't have to be next to you all the time. Now, a guardian angel is next to a child until they're 7 years old all the time, because who knows what they do, right? They need constant surveillance. But when you get older, they don't need to be with you all the time. Now, why do I say that? Because who knows what can happen to you, right? It's kind of random. You could be an auto accident or something like that. The guardian angel can see, depending on the level, a higher angel can see the future longer than, like, let's say, a low spirit that's next to you. They can see a little bit of your future, but not as much as a higher spirit. Your guardian angel can see your future, and they can see, okay, oh, I need to be there at this moment in time. Then they will come and be next to you. Otherwise, they could be a billion miles away, but they would stay in touch with you by the connection between your spirit and their spirit. It's like if you had to your best friend, you had an open line on your cell phone, and wherever that person went, that cell phone, right, goes with them in their pocket. And then you could always say, hey, are you there? And they'll go, yep, I'm here. So you can always pray to your guardian angel. They will hear your prayer. Your guardian angel will be with you in every situation, whether it's in the depth of despair, in a jail, in a hospital, or even in the best situations. And they'll always try and give you good inspirations. inspirations that should be in concert with your conscience, and that's one thing you need to do is to adapt and keep your conscience always kind of above your thoughts. And when you think and you want to do some sort of action, you can filter to know if it came from a inspiring high spirit, it's a good suggestion, or a low spirit with a not so good suggestion. Is your conscience past that? Is it in accordance with the divine law? If you feel you made a decision, but you feel stressed and worried about it, and you're anxious, or you've had a dream and you woke up a little bit disturbed, not comfortable, that shows you that that is probably the wrong thing to do. Now, the other thing, and this is a guardian angel can look at the universal database and know exactly where you are, what you're doing, what you're thinking, because all of our thoughts are recorded, right? You have no privacy. That's gone. Everything, every one of your thoughts is recorded. It's not just actions, right? You can't just close the door and be by yourself. No, you're never by yourself. But they can look at your thoughts. They can see what you're doing. They can look at the thoughts of people around you, and they can query the future, what's going to happen too. So they'll always know where to get you. And I believe your thoughts are probably like a cell phone, where they're labeled of, who's thinking this, where are you, all sorts of information that must be sent with those thoughts. Now that's a concept that's been told to us directly by spirits. So your thoughts are recorded. Your thoughts zoom out of your head all the time. Now imagine how many thoughts you have, and it just has to be amazing. Okay, let me answer this first question here. I once asked this on Facebook. This is the question: what would the spirit say about time travel, like going back in time to meet your younger self or ancestor? Would they be the same spirits as today? So I've not seen spirits talk about time travel, but what I would think that you could do is, since everything is recorded, you could go back in time and see the recording of everything happened. You could be with Julius Caesar as he was surrounded by the Gauls. You could be, you could be on Omaha Beach as they stormed D-Day. You could be with the apostles. You could do all this, and you'd be surrounded by the action around you, and actually even probably know the thoughts of those around you, but you probably you cannot interact with them, because it's a recording of what really happened, and everything is is stored into this universal database. So you could go back and you could query anything you want. You could go back and look at your younger self. Now, could you talk to your younger self, or could you talk to your ancestor? I think not. But can God do anything God wants? And is that possible? I'm not going to say no, because because we live in this very complex universe, right? This digital universe that holds everything, and thought is action, right? And who knows? There might be a way to replay it and insert yourself into this film. It might be a different splice, right? A different, as people talk, a different time period that goes off, and that and it just art needs to be a little snippet that you can play, and since it knows all the personalities of the people at that time. So I mean, the spirit world is so powerful. I'm not going to say no. I don't know what use it would take, because if you went back and met your younger self and gave them some advice, well, first of all, knowing my younger self, I would probably wouldn't take it anyway. But it would interfere with your planned trials and tribulations. And but it is. I'm not going to say it's not possible, and I'm not going to say that it can't be done. And but I've never heard anybody with a near death experience talking to their older self. I've seen I've seen people with near death experience who seen their older self and seen what's the future going to hold, going forward, but I've not seen the opposite of that. So I don't know. I don't know about actually interacting and changing courses, but I do know that you could be part of any type of role play or game. You would, but that's one of the things that just excites the heck out of me when I go back into the spirit world. Is I want to go to that universal library, right, and read the history books and know what people were thinking, and then kind of immerse myself into that whole period. As an example, in the book Memoirs of a Suicide, great book by Yvonne Pereira, the suicides, they went to this school to tell them, okay, look, you committed suicide, but this is why you shouldn't have, and this is why you went to the life you did. And if you just waited a week, a month, a year, things would have been resolved. Maybe resolution is death, but things would have been resolved. Don't off yourself because this is a trial and tribulation you need to go through. Well, Camilo Branco committed suicide. He was older, but he was going blind with syphilis. This is back in about, I think he killed himself around 1890 or 99. There was no cure for syphilis at that time. And actually, his son had committed suicide too. And so he was very depressed at that time. So Camino Branco died, spent time in the lower zone until he would have naturally died, sent to recuperate. Then he went to this like college. He had all these courses of what the spirit world is, what's universal fluid, what human nature is, what a spirit is. But this one important course was, okay, we're going to go back in your previous life. We're going to talk about your previous life. You're going to explore your previous life, and you're going to see exactly why you had to live the life you did. Well, it's really interesting. So he went on the stage. This is kind of going through what I'm talking about. You can see this. And all the other students were like in the classroom. He was strapped into this chair. And then he said, when other students had this same thing, he felt like he was part of the scene. He was there with them. So here's Camino Branco. He was in at the time of Christ. He had a shriveled arm. He was from Gaul, and he could see Christ carrying the cross. And he says, I was so mean. I yelled insult, and I was going to take a rock and I was going to throw it at Christ, but I didn't because I saw the soldiers there. And they would have beaten me if I'd done that. But instead, I insulted his mother Mary. Poor guy. I mean, can you believe finding out that you did that? That's why you got to be careful with past life regressions. And everybody in the audience was there. They knew. They just felt they were all, they were with Christ in Jerusalem, walking through that dusty city and seeing these things. So, and then they fast forward. They say, okay, now let's see what he did on your next life. Next life, he was a very poor nobleman. Couldn't even read and write. But then he went to the church and he asked the priest to help him read and write. He loved this other noblewoman, but they were also very poor, right? But she married someone that she loved and was wealthier and had more of a future ahead of him. So he got so mad, he joined the Jesuits, who was, of course, back at that time, I forgot what he is, like the 14th, 15th century, was part of the Spanish Inquisition. And he said he was like the Jesuits loved him because he would just do whatever they told him to do. He would, arrest people falsely, torture them, take all their assets, right? All those things. Well, this woman came back to Madrid with her husband, and he put him up in charges falsely. And she begged him to let her husband go. He goes, no, we have to have relations. So they slept together. And And he kept thinking that she would fall in love, and she just laid there. And finally said, "Okay, I'm tired of this." He goes, "Well, please let him go." He goes, "Okay, I'll let him go." But he goes, "But she didn't say let him go healthy." So before he let him go, he gouged out his eyes with a hot iron. He blinded him. Now the poor guy, he let him out of prison. Of course, then the poor husband killed himself about a couple of weeks later. So now Camino Bronco said, "Oh, I understand why I have to be blind in one life." Now, considering that he gouged the person's eyes out and did all those terrible things, the fact that he went blind with syphilis at a very advanced age tells you how benevolent the spirit world is, and how they try to teach you the lesson. When bad things happen to you, it's not punishment, it's edification. And how they try to teach him that lesson. Now, if he refused and still was a rotten person, which he wasn't at all, the lesson would be more and more harsh. But I hope that gives you a good grounding on that. Okay, here's another question from Helios 9. Is trying on different religions a great idea to figure out which one makes the most sense and is best for you? There's nothing wrong with that. You should explore everything, and you should read everything. In fact, look what I do. I'm a spiritist, and I've explored. I grew up Episcopalian, read the Bible, so I explored something else, but then I found that Spiritism answered the questions that I had, because things happened to me, and things were foretold in my future with great specificity, that I knew that, there's some sort of predetermination here. There has to be. How does this work? And that's what led me to Spiritism. So I think it's a great idea. And in fact, I still read about Buddhism, Hinduism, and I like to see the similarities, even Druidism. I like to see the similarities and the differences, and because what I've seen is most religions, there's some sort of idea of the golden rule in almost all of them, and they all have something, the good parts to say, right? But what I have seen, though, is that nothing that I've seen, Buddhism gets close, Hinduism too, of really the organization and processes and what's going to happen to you when you actually die. Spiritism gives you a I'm not going to say the complete picture, because we're going to be told things as we go on, more and more things, but it gives you a pretty darn good picture. When you die, you are who you are. If you're a nice person, you're a nice person. When you're dead, you don't turn into this angel of love and light. And it doesn't make a difference if you're baptized or not. You are who you are. And if you're a good person, you're still a good person. And if you were an atheist, but you're a good person, you treat everybody nice, and you had a kind of inkling in your life that there would be an afterlife, you still go to heaven. It's who you are that counts. You don't have to be a spiritist. No, it's just if you're a good person, and try to be. I'm not saying you have to be a saint. So I think that we have to, the important thing is that when you talk about Buddha, Lao Tzu, Zoroaster, Socrates, Socrates, if you really read Socrates, he was the precursor of what Jesus came to say. Because Socrates was, said things like, the gods don't care if you make sacrifices to them. They just want you to be a better person. That's going to make them happy. All sorts of things. You kind of have to really dig deep, but it's there, right? And talked about beauty and truth. So, but what you see, or get back on track here, is that Socrates, Zoroaster, Buddha, and then you see scholars say, well, here's the intersections of these religions, and this one stole something from this religion and all that. Well, you can make that case, but really what the whole case is, who sent them all? Jesus Christ, the leader of our planet, the governor of our planet, the CEO of our planet, sent all these different messengers to Earth to try and help us move along. And they continually send people. People we don't even recognize. They sent Allan Kardec. And did you know when they sent Allan Kardec to codify Spiritism, they sent 50 other people like him, hoping that they would succeed in their mission? Who's heard of them? So, I mean, I think, and I forgot there's a name of one American that made a big splash at the time in the 1850s. Was it Andrew John? No, I can't remember his name. Andrew Davies. Uh, but I was reading about him too about a year ago. So there's a lot. So there, and is look at what they all have in common. And then some of them have really good points of view. And I know like Buddhism, is and it's really right on is you have to. I forgot the exact sequence, but you have to, act right, do right, act right, think right, right. To be a better person, right? And those are all things Spiritism says, yeah, you should do that. So, yes, expand your intellectual horizons. Okay, next question is the Gospel according to Spiritism gives a good account of what happens to departed souls. Yes, it does. And there's actually even more information in later books. In fact, even on my YouTube channel, there's 3 different paths after you pass over. That's a video I have. And the book I'm going over on Tuesdays, Through the Mist, is actually one account of what happens to departed souls. And there's many things, but to break it down is, and remember in when Jesus said, "Let the dead take care of the dead," well, he meant that literally, right? So if you've been a good person and you have friends in heaven and you've got a support group, when you die, and of course, and Leon Denis says that dying is much easier than birth, by the way, you'll have people around you supporting you, helping you cut the paraspirit, right? Because you're a spirit, paraspirit, and body. Let me put that picture up so everybody can see. There we go. So the paraspirit has this long silvery cord that connects to the body. And they even talk about that in Revelations with John, I think. Be John's Revelation, and I forgot where it was. I have a video on that one. But when you sleep at night, that cord still attaches to your body. You can go anywhere you want. It's completely elastic. You can go, a million miles, whatever. But that still connects your paraspirit, still connects to your body. But you can roam the spirit world. So if you've been trying to be a good person, you're going to go to one of the levels of heaven. You'll be assisted. If you were a criminal, or you're, let's say you were extremely materialistic, and that your whole being and goal in your life was to gather more, right? More money, more houses, more goods, whatever. You was probably still, and you just ignored your spiritual side, and we've all been there in one life or the other. So I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, because I'm sure I've done that too. You will be locked on earth, and you'll be one of those spirits that wander around saying, how come no one can talks to me? Where's my family? Or you might be one of those spirits say, oh my God, these people took my gold. And then you stay in that house forever, and people say, well, is this house haunted? Because they can, some people can feel your presence. Or you're taken down to the lower zone if you're really, kind of not a nice person, and you go down when you are in parts of a city, or you're a slave to some other superior spirit. That can happen. Now, the third thing that can happen, which is really unfortunate, are people who truly believe with all their heart that when they die, there is nothing. It's just a big blackness. It's sleep forever. And what happens when those people die is they fall asleep. And so what the spirits have to do is they have to take their paraspirit body, and they take it to a place and they try and uh, wake them up. It may take years. It may take years for them to finally wake up, but they'll like give magnetic passes over them. They'll give passes. They'll help them. Eventually, they will wake up, but it's like you're wasting years or decades of because you don't, right. You are what you think you are, and in their mind, there's nothingness, and so then their mind just shuts down. They're still alive as a spirit, as this logical encapsulation, but it is unfortunate. Okay, here's the next question. Could you be a good person and then come back as a murderer, or is it a progression? So we never retrogress. It's like when people say, well, can you come back as an animal? And the answer is no, you don't go back, because your instincts are better. I mean, so you I mean, not to say it's completely impossible. Who knows? Everything is impossible. It might be an accidental, homicide or whatever. But if you're a good person, you will come. You come into a family, and then by the time you're about 15 or so, your true character and your instinct will come with you. And your instinct is, uh, not to commit murder, to be fair to people. It's like my wife and I were talking the other day, and we said we both met. Neither one of us really drank. We'll drink socially every so often. Neither one of us, even as a teenager, ever cared about smoking, because that was just not ever even a question. Now, why is that? Why weren't we like the rest of the world, right? And it's probably because we had that instinct, as we've been there and done that, and knew that it was it was not healthy. It was not a smart thing to do. That's my feeling, and the fact is, I always, not that I succeeded, tried to be as honest person and fair as I could, and lots of failures. I'm going to tell you that right now. But and a lot of that, I had good upbringing, good parents, but a lot of that's inside of you. So it is it is a progression. Now, what they'll say will happen to you is, not this is not all the time, but you'll go through life after life. They call it parking, right? You'll be at the same level. And I think this is what happened to me. And then all of a sudden you'll figure it out, like, oh, okay, I need to be a good person. And then you'll start rising. It'll be like hockey stick loop. It's not like a steady progression, right? Like a steady slope of a line going up. It's They say, and this is a generality, but a lot of it you'll kind of stay level, and then all of a sudden the light turns on, and you'll make huge uh, leaps and bounds of in your spirituality. Okay. Okay, here's another question. This is a bit about what's going on today with all this anti-white identity politics going on. I've been wondering if it's by any chance karma for past racism, as much as I disagree with these people. Yeah, and then he also says, don't get me wrong, because I do agree, and it's destructive and counterproductive. Right, racism is destructive and counterproductive. And in fact, as you go higher and higher in levels of heaven, it's not even just racism; it's cultural. You learn that, don't worry about what culture you're in. If you're a city person or a country person, or if you're a Hindu or a Protestant, it all starts becoming one level of souls and brothers and sisters together. But identity politics is interesting, because my feeling, I don't know this for sure, is, and let me give you some examples before I go into what I think is happening. Is There's cases that are documented in spiritist literature where, like, Roman generals who who did wonderful victories, but enslaved a lot of people, made a lot of money from them, and then they would be born as a slave. There is instances of people who own slaves, and now this is later. This is more within the last 500 years or so, right? Because remember, at one point, I mean, in one life or another, we've all been slaves. I'm sure we've all been on the lowest rung of the totem pole. And in fact, the serfs in Russia weren't free till what, 1880 something? Then they were like slaves. So, but then the people who were really cruel slave owners, guess what? They'll be born as slaves and be treated cruelly. And so I think a lot of these people who are the most like this can't stand this, hate this, and this perceivedness of something doing wrong to them were actually those people in power before. And they feel like I should still be in power. And those people are holding me back from power. I mean, that's probably just one little aspect of it. But I think a lot of it is when people think they're being pushed on and pushed down, God bless them all, is because they have pushed down and held down people in the past. And that's why they feel that now. Because remember, karma, for every action, there is a reaction. So yes, I believe it is karma. It's teaching all of us something, right? Because we're all living this culture. And but what the spirit world wants is that any type of racism is wrong, no matter if it's you can't. The past is the past. Just whatever. Always treat everyone fair, with love and with kindness. And you can't blame anybody for past mistakes because, first of all, we can also blame people like, well, I was in a family, I wasn't born rich. I have to work for a living. I have to, be the middle class drudge and, or, lower class or whatever it is and live paycheck to paycheck. Because, right in the world, most of us live paycheck to paycheck. We don't have much in the bank. Well, that's part of the trials and tribulations you're going through. Now, at one point in time, everyone will live a life of being rich. And in the spirits books say that is the hardest trial. Now, I know people say, well, I like to try that trial. Well, you probably have. You probably didn't do too well. I know I didn't. Is because what happens when you're rich? You can act any way you want to act, and people are still going to do whatever you want them to do because you're rich. And especially in our culture, if you're rich, then you're automatically smarter than everybody else. So um, so you have a vast amount of opportunity to act incorrectly. Just like in the past, if you were a king or a queen or in a position of power like I was, and you abused that power like I did, because I've been told I've abused my power severely. So that is, so we're all born in the position. So if you're born in a position where you think you're disadvantaged, well, that was on purpose because you were born in the opposite position and you didn't help the disadvantage. In fact, you probably held them down more. But now you're going to see how it felt like to be them. I hope that answers your question. A long answer. Okay, next question. Do you believe spirits help you give answers to some questions? Absolutely, I do. And in fact, let's just talk about a question on a test. So, Geraldo Dutra Dias is a speaker in Brazil about Spiritism. And he's a judge. And to be a judge in Brazil, you take a very long and hard test. And he was with his, I think, wife or fiance at the time. I forgot what he said. And he goes, I don't know what I want to do. And he's finishing college, right? And he goes, I don't know what I want to do. And his fiance or his wife's mother says, why don't you take the test, become a judge? He goes, I don't want to do that. Oh, no, you should try it. All you can do is fail. Well, he said, they look at the booklet, right? Like kind of like the law thing. And then he just he goes, I don't know what happened. I just absorbed it. And then when I took the test, like I knew everything. because he knew now, once he discovers that it was his mind was expanded, right? He had to use his own talent too, right? Because he couldn't just, be a lazy, what. But he had avenues to do well on that test. Now, there's certain questions you could have, like in business, or um, or in, like, you're a scientist and you're looking like for the answer for something you're pondering. You may be taken. Give me an example. I'll give you an example. You may be taken to the spirit world to say, okay, this is how this. I'll give you a clue how this works. I'm not going to tell you the answer, but I'm going to give you a clue. So here, this one man in France was trying to talk about, okay, how could someone see the future? How would that work? So the spirit took him in his sleep, showed him a picture of what was going to happen in his town like 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. He woke up and the spirit said he just had like dim memories. He wasn't really sure what was going on. Then he passed by a shop and there was a poster saying some nobleman or whatever, a duke or count of something was going to come through town. And he goes, oh, it rang a bell. And then he talked about, okay, how could people see the future? And the spirit, didn't tell him exactly how, but he kind of guessed, right? But by the help of the spirit. They say that geniuses like Einstein and Edison, that they will be helped and inspired. The geniuses really have a close connection. They may not know this, but they have a close connection with the spirit world that will give them answers. So the answer is absolutely yes. They'll give you answers to questions on all different levels. Could they give you another question? Could they give you the wrong answer? How can you guard yourself from lower spirits influencing your thoughts? Yes, they can absolutely give you the wrong direction and the wrong answer. And that can happen a lot. I think it happened to me is why, 2 times I was in companies that were bought out. And I was given, quite a lot of money. To me, it's a lot. To other people, probably not. And I invested it, I thought, wisely, in the stock market. I thought these stocks were good and they turned out to be duds, right? And I lost most of it. Well, I believe that I was inspired by lower spirits saying, oh, we're going to break this guy. And so why did I let those answers in there? Because I thought, okay, the stock had small downside but big upside, and instead of being prudent, I was going to go for it, right? And I could make a lot more money. And they're so bright, right? These lower spirits, don't think that they're stupid. They know how to manipulate you. And therefore, to guard yourself, you have to say, okay, what am I interested in? Well, first, as I said before, you have to filter everything through your conscience. If it's morally wrong, you know that was the wrong answer and it was bad advice, bad inspiration from a lower spirit. But it can be subtle, just like, like I was, where it was just, it was just a stock I thought was going to perform better. But it was like, okay, I should have thought to myself, okay, this is money I'm not going to get. I'm not going to get this pile of money again. I should be ultra conservative instead of throwing the dice on the table, right? I wasn't that bad, but I thought, I rationalized that was a good decision when I knew I was taking a chance. So it can be very subtle. So you really have to think of what you're influenced to do, right? And it could be something like you meet this very nice person who could be, your spouse or whatever, right? If you're male or female, your husband or wife. But then you've got this other person that you're interested in, but you're just like passionate, and the bad spirits say, well, go for the fun. Don't, although this person is going to make your life hell in the long term, but go have fun. And and that can be, boy, especially when you're young, that can be extremely powerful influence, can it not? As you get older, you get a little bit smarter. Not all the time. It takes time for all of us, but so these are things. So absolutely, it's tough. Now, yes, exactly. Rationalizing. So yeah, because you can. And so, isn't this what we do, especially as teenagers? Is we rationalize away why we don't listen to our conscience? I mean, I know I was an expert at that. Oh, yeah, I can do that because not everyone else does that, or though they won't mind, or they won't miss that, or whatever, right? That you have to, and you have to rationalize some things, right? It's part of your daily life, but you can't rationalize things that at all pings your conscience. But I mean, pings your conscience. Does it make you feel stress? Do you feel uncomfortable about it? Anything like that? That's a signal that it's the wrong idea to do. Now, why is that? Why are we influenced by good and bad spirits? Why do we have to go through all this? Why can't we just be on earth and be influenced by good spirits? Well, that will happen when as later on as we ascend into a planet of regeneration. The lower spirits will be sent to other planets. But why do we have to do it now? Well, because a very good reason. When you're a high spirit, you have tremendous power. Tremendous power. You can create houses, you can create lakes, you can create, and then when you're very high spirit with Jesus, you create whole planets. Therefore, you need to understand, and you also go on missions to planets and primitive planets and planets of atonement, where you're going to meet all sorts of people who are completely ignorant like us. So you need to be exposed to these bad ideas, these wrong ideas, so you learn how to guard against them. And again, at the same time, it's our process of ripping out our primitive emotions and replacing them with more advanced emotions. So getting rid of hate, envy, pride, selfishness, and replacing them with fraternity, charity, honesty. It's not an easy process. And the whole reason you're on earth is to what? Rewire your brain for the good. And all these neurons there, they've all got to be rewired. That selfish, prideful path that in previous lives probably did you pretty good because you're top of the heap, right? Had a good time. That's something you have to get lower at that time. So there's a good reason. Kendra says hello. Hello, Kendra. Okay, here's another question. Will regeneration last for eternity? I mean, there's been many lost civilizations on Earth. How much experience on Earth do we need? So this is what I actually heard just within a week or two ago. So we are moving to a planet of regeneration. We are a planet of atonement now. And we are in this preparatory stage where there are people from other planets, more advanced planets, being born. They've been born since 90s and the year 2000. And so there's going to be a lot of these people. Actually, Buddha and Socrates are coming back to Earth. So what Chico Xavier said at one point in time is by the year 2057, these people are going to be in charge. And that a majority of 50%, 50.1%, let's say, will be more spiritual, and we'll start getting rid of right now we're like at the apogee of materialism. That will start going, and we'll balance materialism and spiritualism, right? And we'll start on the path of planet regeneration. Now, you don't just like pop in your planet regeneration. It's the same thing as a planet of atonement. You advance, right? And you keep going up and up. There's many levels within a planet regeneration. But what Chico said is the planet regeneration will last for 7,000 years. So, and after that, I think is a happy world. And after that's a divine world, if I remember correctly. I have a video on that and articles on that too. And I have it all in my book, The Spirit Realm, or even like how we are guided by spirits, which is in more detail. And then I also have it in the spirit realm if you want to see exactly kind of a more of a, oops, what I do. Let me bring this up. There we go. The spirit realm, spiritism is revealed the reality of our existence. So this will give you a lot of that information of what is the spirit, what is our future, and it gives you, what's the spirit realm, what is the physical realm. Then when you want to get deeper, I would read my series of 3 books, Heaven and Below, Spirits and Spirit Universe, and how we're guided by spirits. And it tells you the level of planets and people, right? You live longer. In fact, when you get to a happy world, I believe you kind of glide because you're at a different vibrational level. You're not as dense. Right now, we're pretty dense as humans right now. So the whole density, the harmonious vibration of the earth will rise as we, as a collective humanity, rises. You'll live to be like 1,000 years old. When you are born, you'll like within a year, you'll get to be an adult. You'll go through childhood real quick. And when you die at the end of your life, then you'll start aging a bit and you'll be ready to go. Now, there's been many lost civilizations on Earth. Yes, in fact, the spirits book what I've seen is they talk about there's been Lemuria, there's been Atlantis, and so and those were all destroyed. Why? Because the humans were advanced technologically, but they weren't advanced spiritually, and we are now the point where they think that we can advance together, and that because if we didn't, and Chico had this as a prophecy, right? If we had a nuclear war from 1969 when men landed on the moon to July 2019, we too would have been severely disabled and wiped out, right? Not wiped out completely, but severely disabled. Okay. Let me get this one. Okay. Oh, it says, oh, wow, that's interesting. Yes, I mean, it is. So let's go to the next question. Oh, so will Earth itself regenerate or do we go to other planets? So Earth itself, the Earth will correspond with our collective harmony and vibration. So as our collective harmony and vibration goes up, the Earth will follow us and be part of that collective vibration. So the Earth itself will become a planet of regeneration. We could also go to other planets too. So both are an option, just to be specific. Both are an option. So you go to other planets, but the Earth will become a regenerative planet, and we will then probably be able to perceive. We'll be into another dimension, and we'll perceive maybe other planets in the solar system. Okay, got it. We'll have to buy the book. Okay. Yeah, and you can find all my books on my website, nwspiritism.com, on the right-hand navigation bar. Okay, here is from, how about the new theory about Earth being a prison planet? Have you heard about it? Yes, I've heard that, and there are prison planets, but we're not one of them. We are, so it can feel like a prison planet. And in fact, the moon is like an area where they'll put spirits who refuse to learn. They'll take them from Earth and say, no, I'm sorry, you guys, you're not going to be part of a planet regeneration because you're just not saying goodbye to your criminality. They'll put them on the moon and then they'll send them somewhere else. So, but it can seem that way because some people think that, we're locked into these trials and tribulations. There's bad things happening to good people. There's good things happening to bad people, and there's bad things happening to good people. All that, right? All combinations, permutations. But that's all karma. And that's all we're here. We're not a prison planet. We're a school planet. We're a campus planet. And in fact, the more I think about this, I think we really should call ourselves a simulator, right? Because we're learning a whole new way of life. And when you're in a simulator, let's say a pilot goes to a simulator, the pilot doesn't go to a simulator and lands perfect landings 100 times, go, oh, yeah, I know how to fly that plane. No, they put them through all sorts of hell, right? They put all sorts of of problems, engine problems, weather problems, everything that could go wrong. They try to teach them, so when they're ready to go out, they're ready for real life. And that's what we're in here. We're in an educational planet. So when we rise and become productive members of spirit society, we can actually help. Right now, when we die and go to heaven, we learn, we still go to college, we help people on earth, but we're not on that level above the heavens circling earth. Once you get above that level, then you help other planets, you have all these fantastic jobs. um, you help guide species, you help guide whole cultures and races on different planets. But right now we're the kids in school, and some of the older kids help the younger kids. Have you read the Urantia book? Yes, I have. In fact, I asked about that because I said, well, this is interesting. In fact, there are some passages in there that are just excellent, especially like when I forgot when I've done some articles on it when Jesus was saying, what type of religion, what type of spirituality you want. There's some very good philosophy in that book, but the spirits say no. The book is not from spirits or a group of spirits that really know what they're talking about. But it was a very interesting book. I love the book, but no, it did not have. It's not from what Spiritism says. Is not authentic, but philosophically, it's got some very interesting concepts, and it's a good read. So I don't know if you have any other questions beyond that, but yeah, that's yes, I did read the whole book. Very interesting. And I try to read all these things, right? And that's why I go through these other books uh, on PDF, right? I try to find books on PDF that I go through on Tuesdays that aren't spiritist literature, but then I talk about how they correlate with spiritism and the differences and what people see, so we can see what you know how different points of view will say the same thing. Now, the Urantia book would be huge, but I don't want to do. I think it's so much better when I do the books on Tuesdays is to have the PDF version that you can read, and I can't do that on a copyrighted book. So that's why I haven't done that yet. But the Urantia book is interesting. But I love all that stuff. And in fact, anyone here, if you ever have these books that you saw, well, this is from a spirit or something like that, and I would like give it to me, because most of these books I found were all from people who viewed me on YouTube or read my articles and sent me emails or made in the comment section saying you should read this book. Some of them I read and I go, no. No, okay. Now here's another great. I should do that. I could because I could put that on PDF and I could go through Genesis because it's got a lot of clues on it, and I've written articles on it, and it foretells string theory, right? It foretells a lot. They try to make it so because they don't want to give us anything, right? They're not going to. They'll give you the fishing pole, but not the fish, right? So that's a good idea. I'll put that on my list, is to do Genesis, and there might be parts I might skip. Kind of what I'm doing right now is on Sundays going through the Spiritus Review of 1858. So I might do that after I finish the Spiritus Review or one of them, or do it on Tuesdays. But yeah, it's a good book, and they've got the spirits like was it like Leonardo da Vinci, other spirits would be interesting. And then he says, I've started reading it and I find it very dense but interesting. Yes. And in fact, see, and that's a great segue, that is why I consider that if to dip your toe in Spiritism is to read my free PDF, Spiritism 101, the Third Revelation. Because even the Spirits book gets a bit dense, not as much as Genesis, that's for darn sure. But if you can kind of get the overall, and that's also why I wrote the Spirit Realm, is to put it in modern language and to kind of bring all these spiritist writings and kind of give you a central perspective in something easy. And I also have the Spirit Realm on PDF. I'm not on PDF. I'm sorry, on Audible too. So it's on paperback and Kindle and in Audible. So I'd recommend you read that. It gives you an idea. And then I would read Genesis. And then you can kind of see, oh, okay, this is where this is all leading to. And it is interesting. And it's good because you know, Allan Kardec's The Headwaters, right? This is what and you have to remember, this is what the spirits will tell us at that time frame. But then you read other books like by Reverend G. Owen or Yvonne Piera, and of course by Chico Xavier, who's marvelous, right? And if you'll see in his whole series of like No Solar, which I have uh, uh, behind me right there, it's a great book. Books by Emmanuel, by Spirit Emmanuel. This is a book by Spirit Andre Louis. So these are all psychographed by Chico Xavier. Of course, I have the Spirits book, but there's just the more you find out about the real world we live in and who we are, it's just it excites you. Okay, well, I've gone past an hour. I really appreciate all the great questions. I think they're very good probing questions. And please, keep giving me suggestions. Send me other questions you like. I do it later. But remember, on Mondays we have the Q&A for Spiritism. God bless everybody. God bless.